You know what's really annoying is when you wear two different colors of black.
Yeah, so people don't realize that. Like, that's important in suits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can have undertones, like a red undertone or
Yep.
a blue undertone, something like that. Black, not all black is created equal.
No, they are not. And when you have mismatching black and it's like very
I don't
obvious.
care about my gym clothes.
Yeah, in gym clothes, I'm just going in. I don't. But I mean, like, when someone is just like very obviously like you're trying to wear all black, but you're mismatched. I don't think I'm not too far off today. They're pretty close.
I got gray and black on. It's a dark gray though, so
yes, it looks almost black, honestly. Yeah. So,
but again, it's a gym clothes. So
this is metalhead problems.
Metalhead, where everything we own is black.
Pretty much.
If it's not black, it's flannel for me.
I've got a little bit of blue, a little bit of white, a little bit of olive
white.
green.
I wish I could wear white all the time, but it doesn't stay clean, especially when you work and your hobby is the gym.
Yeah.
Not staying clean.
The only time I wear white is when Desi asks me to. She's bought me a couple of white shirts to wear, and I will wear them.
I like color. It's just doing the job that I do. It's not super.
I mean,
It's not going to last a long time if I wear bright colors.
Right. I work.
Reds are typically okay.
Yeah.
In the gym, I don't really like red though. Navy is okay. I don't like it though. That's weird as an Auburn fan. Like that's the reason you never see me in Auburn colors. It's not because I don't love my football team. It's because I hate orange and blue.
Yeah.
Like I just don't wear those colors. Like I have one orange and blue hat that I'll wear on rare occasions. It's an Auburn hat. And then outside of that, I've had like black, like Auburn logo only, but like all black everything. Like for the most part.
I think most of those colors are best as undertones or like what's the other word when they're like just say like a strip down the side or like a little pattern or something like. Yeah, I forget what that's called, but there's a word.
Listen, I don't like any sports fan that's like decked out head to toe in that sports.
Right.
It reminds me of like every town drunk, that's it's sitting at every bar, like decked out head to toe, Alabama visor, Alabama windbreaker, Alabama like windbreaker pants, like everything. Like we get it, dude. Like you love Alabama football.
Special ordered some sneakers that are red and white that have the Alabama logo.
They had Nike had them for a while.
Did they?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
That seems like a Nike
They had a lot of team logos to it, but
yeah, that's the kind of person that you see walk into a bar and then you turn around and walk the other way.
Other than the orange and blue thing, I do Navy's wearable. Don't really like a super bright color orange. Yeah. But I am excited about Auburn being a Nike team and not a Under Armour team now. I mean, more things to me is going to be wearable because Under Armour shit sucks.
I like Under Armour.
I don't like Under Armour, like any of their sports merchandise. Do not like their shirts. I have one that I wear. It's one of the Rocks shirts. Mm-hmm. They seem to fit differently on purpose.
They probably do.
You know what I mean? Like, I do not like. I'll wear Under Armour shorts. Like, there's some Under Armour shorts I like, especially if they're cloth. Mm-hmm. I don't like their like gym short material.
Their gym short material is weird. Like especially the ones that I got a while back. I actually don't wear that pair of pants or shorts very often because they're not. They feel kind of tough.
They're not really great for squats.
No, they feel weird. They feel restrictive, which is really strange.
I have Nike shorts like that too, and I love Nike. So
if I'm going to squat, it needs to either be loose or stretch.
I'm not wearing Nike shirts or sweatshirts either, unless it's like NFL memorabilia,
right?
Some type. Like, I don't like their tops at all.
Yeah,
but
I like a few of the Under Armour shirts that I have. They're pretty comfortable. And then I've had one or two pairs of shorts that I've liked. I usually buy their stuff because they go on sale and they're super cheap. Their jackets are very comfortable. I really, really love their jackets. Alpha Elite is probably my favorite shirt that I've ever owned.
Yeah.
The two that Desi have bought me are just incredibly comfortable.
It is great stuff. Not the stuff that you want to be associated with the other people wearing Alpha Elite, though.
I don't give
It's kind of like Gymshark. Like, it's probably great, but like...
Let me go on this rant, okay? There is at least one individual, and maybe only one individual, who always thinks that they have this great hot take. And it's
not me.
It's not you. No. And they like to post it on their story and talk about how if you wear certain brands of clothes, then you are not strong and you do not have a good physique. Specifically, I think mentioned was Gymshark, and there was another one, but I remember Gymshark.
I actually know the post on the person.
Yep. So I have a few things to say about this, and this is all show before the show stuff. First of all, one of Gymshark's big influencers, sponsor, whatever you call affiliates.
Or he.
Well, or he too, but I was thinking Jamal Browner.
Yeah.
He is significantly stronger than 99% of the population.
99.9999999.
Also,
you could list nines a long time when you're talking to that
also,
guy.
he is significantly more jacked and shredded than 99.99999% of the population. So you're telling me that guy isn't strong and jacked and his physique sucks? Second, this individual also is terrified of posting a shirtless picture. So what the fuck is he even talking about physique for?
Post one, but
why is he commenting on other people's physique based on what they wear when all you wear is oversized shit to cover up what you're like? Don't talk about other people's physique if you can't back it up.
Yep.
Third, why the fuck do you care what someone else is wearing? That's what gets me the most is like, if someone's in the gym, like even if they're wearing my most hated jeans and boots, like you do you, man. If you're in there and you're bench pressing and you don't have legs to do that day, or you just don't train legs at all, fucking wear your jeans and boots because it's not going to affect you. Like if you're going in there and getting an arm pump,
most importantly, it doesn't affect the person complaining about it.
Exactly. Like it doesn't bother me at all. And if you go in there and you squat in your boots and jeans and you tear up your pair of jeans,
we
like
are
that's
fortunate
on
that
you.
we have jeans that do that now.
Right. But this is like,
yeah.
I'm talking like standard,
General,
like people who are going to go squat in those types of jeans probably already have a pair of gym shorts that they're going to squat in anyway. Most people who are going to buy those jeans aren't actually going to take them to the gym. They're just going to wear them out because they're comfortable and like stretchy. And they can fit into them without tearing the crotch out of them.
I would love a pair of jeans that fit properly in the waist and my thighs.
Mm-hmm.
I wear two brands of jeans, and the reason I wear them is because I can get my thighs in them, and all of them are too big in the waist.
Right.
I have to size up to get my thighs on them.
And you gotta belt them basically.
Yeah. I always have to belt them. And I hate wearing a belt. I
don't hate it, but I'm not a fan of it. Like I'm very indifferent. But anyway, that's my clothes rant.
Kind of started down. I don't know if it should be show before the show or not, but started down my aesthetics crowd rant the other day.
Yeah.
And part of that, I'm happy anybody's in the gym. Let me just say that 100%. I still don't understand the heat everybody else gets from that crowd.
Right.
But I will say, I'm not defending this person's point.
Mm-hmm.
That demographic, their Lululemon shorts and their Gymshark shirts, the aesthetic crowd does tend to lean
into that,
like name brand, like
so.
I can't, it's going to be Lululemon shorts and a Young LA shirt, guaranteed, like guaranteed.
I'm not saying you're wrong because they do. I mean, that's fair, right? They do wear that shit a lot, but also, is it just because it fits them well?
It might be, and it does.
You know,
like, listen, I'll wear athletic. If I buy a t-shirt, it has got to be, with the exception of the brand I have on right now being Born Scum, and I think my arms are just jacked enough it fills it out a little bit more.
Right.
Thank God. I don't want a baggy chest. I don't want baggy arms. Like I'm gonna buy an athletic fit t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's the reason I wear a lot of 8-man, other than I like the fact that it's Ed Cohen's and it's geared toward charity a little bit. But they fit well. That's the reason I like that shit.
So my thing is, like, maybe all these people are wearing them because they are designed to fit that body type well.
They are.
And so like if it fits you well, it's comfortable,
looks good,
you can go for it.
I don't necessarily understand the 4X Young LA shirt when you're 185 pounds. like I understand the pump cover thing, but like you would have been fine in a single XL. Like would have covered
maybe
you
just a large, honestly.
Like,
at 180, a large fit me like loose.
Yeah, like,
and I mean that's
you're probably in a 2X now.
Yeah. Well, no, I think this right here is a large, and I'm kind of
you're tall enough that you're not to the point now that you have to size up because of length. Originally when I went to a 2X, I was sizing up because of length and not because of overall fit.
So XLs fit me very well now. Large, like this one, if I stretch, you'll see my stomach. If I have a couple of mediums that I need to get rid of because they are just too fucking small at this point, but I keep them not to wear them because I have emotional attachment. Not even to remind me of how small I was. I have pictures for that, but mostly just because I have an emotional attachment to those t-shirts because I bought them as a kid, and
I just don't understand because I don't do it to other people. Mm-hmm. I don't understand that crowd's infatuation with dumping on other styles of training, especially like the whole "there's no point in being strong."
Oh yeah, those people are just
like those. And in the same breath, they'll complain about those things and then ask me what they need to do to get bigger.
Yep, it's actually get stronger.
Yeah, I mean,
the funny thing is that's what the science says.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're a bodybuilder strictly or not. You can absolutely chase a pump, but at some point your pump is diminished by the fact you're not chasing load. Like, honest to God, if you get in a rep range of anything where you're habitually doing 20 plus reps of something, mm-hmm. I would go one step further. If you're habitually doing 15 plus reps of a weight, it's probably time, even with the strictest form, slowest tempo, it's probably time to move up in weight. Like, there has to be, to some degree. I'm gonna mention a guy I have a lot of respect for, and he's become a friend of mine in my gym. Does not train the way I do. Very rarely does big compound movements. But it's a really good bodybuilder, and Chris Stacks. Mm-hmm. Chris, despite him not training the same way I do, I don't think I've ever seen him bench press. Mm-hmm. Never seen him squat on a bar. Big guy, very big, muscular guy, very capable. He chases a little bit of weight. He puts more weight on the damn machine, bar, whatever he's doing every week.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what he's doing. There's some weeks he doesn't feel like it, and he'll tell you that. Sometimes he just wants to get a pump and leave. But that's what we call a deload. That happens with us all the time. It's planned for, whereas bodybuilders get a little bit more grace in that they get to
kind of play,
auto-regulate and do it as they want to. We have a deadline to meet, and we have to get so strong by a certain date. Yep. So we don't always have the luxury of playing it day by day. Although, depending on your coach, that's necessary sometimes, we would agree. But most of the time I got to hit this number regardless of how I feel, has to go down this date, moving on to the next date, and that's the way it's got to be for us. And so he gets to auto-regulate a little bit more, but in general, on a week-to-week, workout-to-workout basis, he's actively trying to, even if it's 2.5s aside, he's trying to match reps with a little bit heavier weight than he did last time, or move a little bit more weight in general, whatever it may be. He's always chasing more of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dr. Mike has said it a million times, there should be a couple of things that you're looking for, and that is either more reps or more weight. Getting stronger in general is going to make you bigger.
Yeah, the efficacy of a compound movement's not necessarily that there are better movements to train your lats than a bent over row, to isolate them.
Right. But the load matters.
Yep. And the fact that you can load a bent over row way heavier than you probably can a lat pull down or something like that is going to lend itself to a little bit of growth. 100%. Yep. The lat pull down itself, chasing weight, will lend itself to a little bit more growth. You can change handles, change rep scheme, change a time element. But, chasing the load, ultimately, I don't know about you, but there's very, very little difference in what I can do on a close grip V-bar on lat pull down and a wide handle. I'm probably rowing the stack regardless. It doesn't fucking matter.
I'll be honest. I haven't
what I mean?
On the
I like a plate loaded one better.
Right.
Because it's much easier to load weight.
I've been doing cable rows, specifically flexion rows, for the past 8 weeks or so. And I've only been using a V-bar handle.
I ask people all the time, do you do pull-ups? Yeah, like that, especially like that demographic. Yeah, I do pull-ups, but I'm, at sub 200 pounds, you can probably do a lot of them.
Yeah.
Great, weight them.
Yeah.
Weight them.
And some of them
you know what I mean? It's basically a lat pull down that you get your body weight on, which is probably as much as the stack most of the time. And then you can add weight beyond. It's cool that it's 5 or 6 reps, dude. You ain't got to do 20 every time you do a set of pull-ups.
But that's fine. That's what they like to do.
Move weight. But they'll chase that number on bench press.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Will not do it on legs. Will not do it on an arm exercise. Then they come to me man, I really want to get my bench up. How do I do it?
Have you trained your legs? You know how to do leg drive?
Well, not just train your legs, but man, you got 14-inch arms.
Right.
you're not going to support
that much weight.
You can't support that much. I mean, you physically don't have the muscle there to bench what I bench. Like, it's fine. Like, but like you need some more tricep, dude. Like, that's what it is. You need bigger lats. You need a thicker chest because when you got a bird chest, you have to take that thing. Yeah. That bar's traveling 2.5 foot because, it might as well touch the pad. I'm not trying to cut those people down at all, but like, I mean, like,
but that's a real thing.
You should. I can get a pump with pretty light weight on the pec deck. Like, I don't have to do the whole stack, but I still actively try. Part of the reason why I don't have to use heavy weight is because I've already exhausted my CNS and my muscular limits on the bench press.
Right.
If I go on the pec deck, I'm not doing the pec deck with a whole stack more than like I can.
Right.
But like, it's probably kind of fucking useless after a heavy bench. But I'm still actively trying. If Ron gives me a rep range at 12, typically I get an RPE assigned to it. I know next week I probably need to try to do 5-10 more pounds. Like, I ain't got to do the whole stack, but I am actively chasing weight on everything that. And a lot of times, if he knows, I do this with myself because I track everything. A lot of times, if he knows, hey, I've done 100 pounds on the pec deck, 2 or 3 weeks in a row, I've gone 12, 13 reps consistently, 15 reps consistently, he'll put it in my program to move up. Moving up the next plate, whatever it may be, 2 plates, whatever he sees necessary. So like, it never stops. And I'm not saying I look good, but like, think about somebody like Chris Treese who actually is strong and actually really does look good. That's somebody that his whole gym life has been chasing a little bit more weight on everything that we do safely, but like it works. Like the science says it works. Like you get on RP who is strictly science based. They don't want to bullshit nobody about anything. Like very little opinion. Like this is what the science says. This is how we do it. They will tell you that progressively overloading something matters. You know what I mean? Like, but you get that crowd that's, they get a little veiny from their bicep pump. It's like, oh, strength don't matter. I look better than you. What the fuck does it matter if I'm strong?
Like, it'll matter when I pick you up and break you over my knee. But, if you were a little stronger, I might not be able to do that.
But yeah, I think the problem with that culture, the strictly trained for aesthetics culture, is strength training is aesthetic training. Aesthetics are made in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
Ask any pro bodybuilder. You know what I mean? Like Eddie Hall, who the first time he stood on the platform had to train like a bodybuilder because he did not have access to
strongman equipment,
trained exactly like a bodybuilder and did not look like a bodybuilder. You got any guess as to why? Probably because aesthetics are made in the kitchen. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and those same people, like, how do I gain weight? How to do this? You got to eat more.
Yep.
I don't really have an appetite.
But if I eat more, then I'll get kind of chunky and I'll put on. Like,
that's great.
That's the point.
Cut.
Yes, this is why there are cycles. You eat a lot, and then you maintain that, and then you cut down, and then you maintain that.
I feel like though that what we do, like if a big bodybuilder, like if. And I'm not saying his information is invalid because it's not. Chris is somebody that's gave me a lot of good ideas and stuff. Take somebody like Stacks, who I mentioned before, always adding weight to the bar, looks good, looks the part, stuff like that. If they ask his opinion about stuff and they got the exact same answer, they would be more willing to try it.
Yep.
It's because I'm a power lifter, training the exact same way Chris does, maybe on different implements.
Right.
But they don't want to look like me.
Right.
So I got 10 people that look better than you that are powerlifters. Right. like I don't know what to tell you, dude. Like I got bodybuilders. Like you want to go down my roster, we'll talk about it. This is just how we do it. Like muscle is muscle is muscle is muscle. Doesn't really matter what we're doing with a muscle at the end of the day, whether it's spray tans and shaking our ass in a bikini or or actually doing something viable and inarguable like being stronger than somebody else. It's achieved the same way. Lifting heavy shit and a series of bulks and cuts and maintenance.
Yeah. I think a lot of people sleep on maintenance, honestly. And that, in my opinion, that's the staying power, is staying in maintenance for a short period.
Absolutely. And it's also what keeps you from experiencing dieting burnout. It keeps you from experiencing bad blood work from getting too fat. Not going to maintenance immediately after a cut. You need to go back to maintenance before you start bulking.
Yep.
There's going to be an inherent amount of bulk that happens from maintenance anyway, because you're going to have some water weight attachment from more carbs, maybe different supplements. At that point, if I'm cutting a bodybuilder, we're probably not using creatine last 12 weeks or so because of the water weight's unnecessary.
Yeah.
But like, you've started using supplements that we haven't been using before. Your cycle may be different. If you do use PEDs, that's going to add some water weight. But like, that's just like, let's reestablish what baseline is. Your baseline level of health is here at maintenance. That's what maintenance is. And then we cut and bulk based on, because I'll say again, this is really not show before the show stuff, but we cut on as many calories as possible and we bulk on as few calories as possible. That's how you keep from getting fat. So,
yep. And I watched Dr. Mike video that said basically the exact same thing, because he was talking about his mistakes that he made as far as nutrition. And one of his biggest regrets was gaining a shit ton of weight and getting like overweight, like fat, and then thinking, but I'm going to cut and it's going to be great. The problem with that is the amount of fat cells that you create when you get overweight don't go away. They just get smaller. So you have more fat cells, but they are just smaller.
Your ability to store fat becomes greater because of that.
Yeah. So
basically,
if you can stay relatively lean most of the time, you're going to be better off.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I mean, there's a point, like, I think he said no more than 20% body fat is like where you should be as far as, he's talking obviously about aesthetics.
Yeah.
But for bodybuilding, don't bulk past 20% body fat and don't cut past, I think it was like 8%.
Hey, I like Heathen Strong take on powerlifters is there's no reason for a powerlifter, regardless of weight class, to be over 15%.
Yeah.
Regularly.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like,
when you bulk, like,
you're going to go to 20, maybe 25, depending on, like, I'm going to 25.
Right.
but like, if you do that, like, that's probably, like, but, in general, for health and stuff like that, like, you need to look and be athletic.
Right.
Work capacity matters in powerlifting, too. Like, people just, mass is mass, stronger is stronger. Like, work capacity is better at a healthy body weight. Body composition. But BMI sucks. But that's the show before the show. I am drinking a little bit of wild turkey and some butterscotch schnapps on top of it with a little bit of water.
Is it good?
Nothing crazy. It's very good. You want to try it?
Nah, I'm okay.
Oh, yeah. No real cocktail. It's an early show for us, so not a lot of reason to get plod. He's in prep, so he's trying to abstain for the most part.
I think 6 weeks out, or 5 weeks tomorrow.
5, yep. 5 weeks out.
Well, actually 5 weeks today.
Yeah,
because the competition's on a Saturday. So 5 weeks out, a few more weeks of training.
Yeah, we're pretty much home stretch on regionals.
1 week of training next week, and then RP 9 to 10 lifts stacked the next few weeks, undulated with my other lifts. And
I guess your last heavy deadlift's coming probably next 2 weeks.
2 weeks from
tomorrow.
From Monday.
Monday, yeah.
2 weeks from Monday. So hoping to hit
a heavy-ish lick Monday, a down week next Monday, and then
next
third Monday.
Next week, or this upcoming Monday is my down week.
Okay.
I did sick. Well, we'll just talk about that when we get into that.
Yes, sir. So that's the show before the show, guys. We ranted about people talking out of turn and
people shit talking where they shouldn't shit talk.
Yeah, and some pet peeves. And it was good.
Diet stuff.
And some diet stuff that's useful, and you can find that on.
Truth be told, that could have been like an actual episode. But, I mean, it wasn't that long, but like the content could have been an actual episode.
New year, though, and take what we said with a grain of salt. It's really, really important in the new year to embrace new people because they're in there doing the same thing you are. Not physically embrace them.
They will probably leave if you do.
You should be welcoming to new people. They're in there doing the same thing you are. They may be at its infancy and may not know a thing about what they're doing. But here in the new year is really, really important to not be a grouch about a more crowded gym. It's very important to support people in their movements because the likelihood of quitting something like that is pretty, pretty high. And you don't want those people to quit. Those are your future teammates, your future peers.
Potentially future friends.
If you're single, that might be a potential love interest one day. Like, so it's important to be like, for more reasons than just not being a dick. It's important to to embrace these people. And the likelihood in my gym that they're your future teammates is pretty fucking high. Yeah. So don't shit down their fucking neck. And while with some news that me and Nathan are going to talk about today in this episode, it may be really important for those new people to be on your team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just keep that in mind. Be nice, stuff like that.
I've got a few comments on New Year's people coming in, New Year's resolutioners, whatever you want to call them. The big thing, like, I agree with everything that you said. Obviously, don't be a dick. At a minimum, just like don't roll your eyes at them. Don't just like stay out of their way. Yep. If they're in your way, just be a little more forgiving. Like they probably don't realize they're in your way.
They probably don't have much gym etiquette yet.
Yeah, just tell them like, hey, like if they get on your machine, like, hey buddy, I was using that. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what
do you want to work in?
Exactly.
Not fucking wait. Like I can share.
Yeah.
Like because you're gonna rest 2 minutes between your fucking sets anyway.
Most likely. Yeah. And if you only got one set left, just like, hey, I'm gonna hit one more set and then it's all yours, something like that.
Yeah.
And too, if someone is using a machine that you don't really want, like me, I don't like bugging people most of the time. If you're experienced, you can change like anything that's not a major like specific movement that you just have to do. You can change most of your movements and just do something else.
You don't get to do barbell JM press. Great. Do it on a fucking preloaded bar. Find a machine that'll do the same thing.
Right.
Whatever.
Or just change the movement altogether and do a different tricep movement.
You need a tricep. Yeah,
right. Just like there are many variations that you can do. It's not going to kill you to miss something one week, one day. Like just do something different. It's fine. It's not a big deal. The other thing, like if they're in there and they don't know what they're doing and they ask you for help them. Don't be a dick. Like I've had people come to me and ask me, hey, how far do I need to squat? I'm like, well, you need to get your legs like, and this is like literally I'm catching my breath. So like I may sound like an asshole because I'm catching my breath, but I'm just like, get to parallel, legs parallel with the floor. That's perfect. Like that's where you need to be. And he'll look at me and like do some and like, is this right? And I'll look and I'm like deeper. Go deeper than that. Okay, you're good there. And then stops doing it and goes back. And then it's like, you know what? You did your part though. Yeah. Even though it's frustrating because you told them what to do and they did it. And then they said, that's too hard. I'm not going to do that. You don't have to give them any more advice. Yep. Like at that point, if they come back to you and ask you again, you can just say, well, I already told you and you already know. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't have time to coach you.
Advice brings up unsolicited advice, especially to ladies. They have a hard enough time being in the gym the first time anyway.
Don't be a creep.
Don't be a creep. Don't watch them. Not saying, if they're doing something egregious and going to hurt themselves, right. maybe some unsolicited advice could be necessary. But by and large, they don't want unsolicited advice. They don't want to be made uncomfortable. You shouldn't give it. You're interrupting your own workout. You're wasting your time, possibly hers.
I can tell you this. You can tell when a girl is at the gym for attention and when they're there to better themselves. So if they're there,
you can tell with anybody.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's very true. So if they're just like trying to get attention and you want to give them, if you're that person, I guess, do what you got to do. But if they're actively just trying to better themselves, they're actively doing their own, like just most of the time you're better off just leaving them alone unless you want to. If you want to have a conversation, you definitely don't need to do it either in the middle or after a set. Wait until they're walking around, like doing something that you're not going to be bothering them. That way they can leave if they don't want to talk to you.
Most people know when they need help.
Right.
And they probably know who the big dudes in the gym that know what's going on are.
Most of the time you'll see them looking around. Yep. Like if you see someone looking around, kind of like trying to find somebody, it's a good indicator that they need some help. Yeah.
But like just blatant unsolicited advice, they don't need it. You don't need to give it. You just look like a creep.
Yep. And also last point about New Year's resolutioners, being nice to them. Like I know it may get crowded and being nice to them is a positive, but statistics will tell you most of them are not going to stick around for February. Just tough it out. It's fine.
Yeah. If you absolutely just don't want to have anything to do with them or grouchy about them being there, just wait.
Yeah. I mean, they will either commit and you'll be like, okay, this person's actually interested, and then maybe something develops from there, or they're going to be gone, and you're like, well,
oh well, I get my gym back.
Yep, exactly. So
no more waiting on equipment, you know. So I mean, it's not. There's just no reason to be a dick, I guess.
Yeah,
you know, that's what we're saying. So that wasn't really show before the show, but I guess it was because we didn't get to the introduction.
we tried to.
Twice. Welcome to the Sip It and Rip It podcast. I'm Zach. He's Nathan. You can follow us at Coleman_Barbell, at Nathan Skedios, at Sip It and Rip It. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you really get your podcasts, right? Wherever you get them, you can listen to us. You can watch us on YouTube, subscribe to us there, leave likes, comments, rate us 5 stars on Spotify. Hit our Instagram DMs, ask us questions, tell us we suck, tell us we're great, whatever you want to do. All traffic is good traffic. Mm-hmm. I'm still curious about the 1 4-star rating. Not because, like, again, just to reiterate, it's not because we got 4 stars. If that's how you feel, that's fine. It's just that I know how I rate things. If I'm super pissed off, I'm not thinking about it. I'm giving something 1 star. Mm-hmm. And then if it's anything I want to support, I'm giving it 5. If I give anything in the middle, I really had to think about it.
Yeah. Like there was something.
So I appreciate the honesty because there's honesty involved in a 4-star rating.
Right.
Like, the honesty is appreciated. I would just like to know what that honesty was. And if you're a regular listener,
if you were the person,
I would like to know. I mean, really, like, I want to know what we can do better because, like, me and Nathan are actually trying. Mm-hmm. Content-wise, we could probably do a little better.
We could follow the format a little better.
Me and him are also hyper aware of that. But it's also a weekly show from 2 guys that work 60 hours a week. Mm-hmm. So it's tough to be here sometimes. And sometimes it's tough to prepare. But that's also the reason why you get X amount of honesty because we ain't really got time to tell you too much else. You know what I mean? For Richard, it is what it is. You know, like if you're in it, like, we're great, we appreciate you, but we do actually want it to be better. So if you have constructive criticism, we want it and need it, and we're receptive to it, and we're used to it because we're both coaches and we're both coached. Mm-hmm. Like, we know the positivities of criticism. We're not scared of it. So, so let us know. That being said, is that the introduction? Oh, we have a new sponsor, old sponsor. No longer sponsored by Scooters Coffee. We drink plenty of it. We love it. Nothing bad to say about Scooters, but our sponsor has sold that business. Mm-hmm. So we should say our sponsor really is Richard Neese, who has his own podcast. Can you bring up the name of his podcast so we can plug it real quick?
I think it's just called the Richard Neese Podcast or the Neese Podcast.
But we're going to double check that information. He has him and Justin, who is the co-owner of The Butcher here in Vinemont, have sponsored us and our grocery bill. And we appreciate that greatly. So we are now sponsored by The Butcher. It's honestly probably more useful to us. Is that probably true?
Yes, absolutely. And it is called the Richard Neese Podcast, Richard Neese Podcast.
Richard Neese Podcast. Listen to it. That's a friend of ours, a sponsor of ours. I think in this podcast, it's a little bit more general than shows he's done in the past, but he has a lot of really good wisdom in terms of business, in terms of real estate, in terms of fitness, in terms of life. This is a man that's lived a life well and has a lot of valuable information on a lot of things. So
he's done 75 hard. He's done the carnivore diet.
He has.
Has he done paleo?
He's starting paleo with me Monday, and he starts a lifting regimen for me Monday. It's a very driven, very self-motivated individual. We got him down to nearly a 7-mile-an-hour 5K split. He wanted to chase cardio goals and rucking goals. I think he did like a 20-mile ruck or something to finish this with 50 pounds on his back. He can edit it, but it was 15, 20 miles, something like that. He's very, very goal-oriented, very serious about his health. He's gone through phases of that before. He is a past client of mine and now a current client of mine. But he doesn't do anything half-assed. So when I say that he has good advice in almost every facet of life, you should absolutely listen to him. While they may not be sponsoring our sobriety via coffee anymore, they are still sponsoring our grocery bill through The Butcher. So,
which is awesome.
It is really fucking cool.
I'm also going to say this. The Butcher has really great quality meats and varying price ranges depending on what you want. I think their sirloin is pretty competitively priced. It might be a little more on the expensive side, but the quality is significantly better in my opinion. especially like places from Walmart, stuff
They're
like
also
that.
going to do custom cuts without penalizing you for it. So if you want your sirloin cut a certain thickness, a certain, whatever you may be, if you're making sandwiches, they can cut it thin. If you're grilling steaks, they can cut it thick, whatever. They're not going to give you any grief about it. Your price isn't going up.
As long as they have it available to cut. That's the only caveat.
So it's it's a really good local business. And they also have a food truck that's really good. They do a lot of local events here in Coleman County, all over North Alabama, really. They go kind of everywhere. So it's a great business. I would like it if y'all supported them. And I would like it if you gave his podcast a chance, because that is a very, very close to us kind of brethren podcast. It's probably going to be a lot cleaner, a lot more business oriented. But that's what we're looking at. It's worth a listen for sure. That's the introduction, I suppose. So
long introduction today, but we had a lot to talk about.
With a change in sponsor, it's a lot to talk about. The Butcher in Vonmont.
Yep.
What did you do? Meats. Yeah, go get meat. What did you do in the gym this week?
So it was week 1, so it was kind of just like a baseline week, so nothing too crazy. I set my goal for deadlifts to be 605 for 3 sets of 1 to 3. I ended up doing 3 sets 3, moved really well, no issues. Bench press, I had 405 singles, and then the last single I decided to do 425. All of it moved relatively well, but it wasn't super crisp like normal. My last warm up was I think it was 365, and it moved very, very well, so I was pretty excited. 405 was just okay, and 425 was a little sluggish, but also sleep was not great the night before, and also the deadlifts were pretty reasonably taxing, so a lot going into that. Thursday I did squats. Didn't have tons of time in the gym that day, but still managed to get it was either 485 or 505 for a handful of singles. Wasn't trying to push too hard, just trying to get some stimulus.
Sure.
Friday, I did incline press, and I actually PR'd my incline close grip with 355, which was kind of on a whim. It was supposed to be sets of 5. I hit 315 for a set of 5, which was also a PR. So I was pretty stoked about it, and I was like, I wonder what I can actually just get for singles. And I loaded 335, and it moved pretty well. I got a spotter for 355. Stuck a little bit at the midpoint where my triceps were at, but I think my triceps were just kind of tired after that, so no big deal. But it was cool. It fast off my chest, super, super fast off my chest. So
that's been a staple for you for a little while.
Yeah, I really like that movement as a complement to primary bench press, because the range of motion is significantly larger. It also targets your triceps more and your shoulders more. And that's really the goal of my secondary press day, is to focus on my triceps more than my chest. So that's why I program it like that.
It's been working really well for you. Very, very rare to see somebody have a incline is that good, to be honest with you. You have a competitive bench press on your incline, and that's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad place to be at all.
Incline close grip too. So
incline's very, very gym dependent, and that I really don't want to do it on bad equipment. Mm-hmm. It's very important for me to be able to get a rack height that is agreeable.
Yeah.
So if you're in that situation, incline in a squat rack so you can have a little bit more adjustment over your reach. I don't particularly like our incline at the garage, because it unracks from very far behind your head, and it's also a very short unrack. Mm-hmm. And I just don't see myself doing it in a fruitful manner that's going to preserve. Part of your secondary press is it should be stimulating without, and also preserve your primary press. Yeah. So I can't do it where I'm at currently. I cannot do it, or at least on that piece of machinery, I cannot do it in a way that both complements and preserves my primary press, if that makes sense.
That's the fortunate thing about the one in Hartselle, is that it has several different rack heights that you can use. So it's not adjustable; it's all fixed, but there are different ones that you can sit it at. So whatever's comfortable for you, you can find. It does sit a little bit behind your head, but not too bad. Not to the point where I feel like I'm going to hurt my shoulders by unracking it. So it's not so bad.
Sure. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, it's a good gym week. It was deload on upper body. So nothing to report on bench press other than very much needed the deload because all my deload weight felt like 100 pounds heavier than what it was. Mm-hmm. It felt like an absolute ton. Very bad week for upper body. But also Ron, I shouldn't say me and Ron. Ron planned for that, knew it was going to be that way. Come off a bench press comp, had a couple other heavy bench press sets I had to get done before we deloaded. Got them done. They weren't comfortable, but it was just time for an upper body deload. So nothing to report on upper body. Still not deadlifting. Mm-hmm. Had SSB good mornings and replacing my deadlift. They went well. Nothing really. Monday is a little bit on the easy side right now, just because I don't have to deadlift.
Right.
And recovery, honestly, that's probably one reason I've been able to keep my foot on the gas on squats. Recovery has also been really good without deadlifts, ironically.
Right.
Not really ironically. That's really by design.
Driver of us.
But I've had a little bit more in the tank for squats on Wednesdays and Saturdays because I haven't been deadlifting. Mm. So really been able to push squats. Front squats have basically PR'd every set I've done for the past 3 weeks and required me to PR. That's not necessarily aggressive programming, although it, if you're in that situation, it probably feels aggressive. It's basically based on feedback of what I've been able to do and what I've done successfully. So I've never, since I left the CrossFit gym, I just haven't front squatted consistently.
Right.
So consistency in the front squat has led to me blowing it up, basically. But 284 or 289, I don't know, because that's an odd size SSB bar. For 3 sets of 6 the other day, paused. Was really good, really successful, moved really well. I'm really surprised by that. I know that's not an enormous squat, but if you've ever front squatted before, anything over 2 plates gets pretty fucking oppressive.
Yep.
Even for really good squatters. Austin, even, who has had a near 600-pound front squat before, just got done with a block where I was asking him to do quite a bit of volume on front squat, and, sub 300 pounds was tough for him.
Yeah.
So it's a very, 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 very difficult movement that I have managed to put a lot of weight on. So pretty happy with it. And then I PR'd my high bar squat today. You can't really call it a 30-pound PR, but it has been a cumulative 30-pound PR across this block. And on top of that, everything's been a volume PR. So high bar squats have gone really well. I have never high barred within 70 or 80 pounds of my low bar. And on a good, really well recovered week, I probably could have squatted my low bar PR today. And I really believe that. It moved really, really well, despite the way it felt. It felt terrible. So I called it down. I just high barred 465. Really believed going into it that if I was recovered and feeling good, I'd get closer to 500. Just didn't have to have it.
Right.
If that's fair. I mean, I guess that's probably fair. Got what I needed, which was, a little bit more than what I had high barred last week. But I feel really good about it. It was mostly pain-free. Hips a little aggravated in the bottom, but I think it was related to load and bar style and not necessarily
the movement itself.
Yeah, the movement itself. High bar is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So when it's loaded heavier, going to get a little bit more negative feedback in terms of the way you feel. So, but I mean, that went well. So it's been a good week. I would imagine a lower body deload is probably coming this week. But nothing to complain about, other than apparently when I need a upper body deload, I need an upper body deload. Like no weight on the bar. Cause I'm pretty fatigued still. And it was 300-pound bench press and like a 250-pound floor press, which is close grip floor press. So it's a little bit harder, but I've been moving nearly 100 pounds more on both of them.
Right.
And they somehow felt worse. So deload was necessary.
Yeah. That's how you know. PR songs?
PR songs, yep. Let's get it.
Let's see what we got. I know I saved a couple. So I guess I only saved one. I know there was more that I was listening to, but the only one that I put on here is Contraption by Black Tongue.
Black Tongue is so cool.
They're one of my favorite, like, I don't even know how to describe them other than death metal, but there's a very specific kind of just that sluggish, slow, just...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're probably very modern compared to a lot of like traditional death metal sounds.
Yeah.
It's a little black metal too, I can't lie to you.
It does have a little bit of tremolo in it.
But it's not a whole lot of core about it.
No, I would not call them deathcore.
It's very, very modern, and it's very tuned down, extended range instruments, super low, super slow.
Yeah. When it's slow, it's slow, and it's when it's fast, it's fast.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's very aggressive tempos in general. Really good vocals.
Oh yeah, he's a great vocalist.
Yeah,
if you like that style, obviously.
Yeah. I don't have any complaints about Black Tongue, man. I'm a fan. I should really listen to more of them, to be honest with you. I like them better than I'll listen to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But man, they've got some hangers, and like some of the riffs that they come up with are just fucking brutal. It's such a good band. Lyrically too, lyrically they're fucking badass.
I'm gonna do a funny one that's not serious, but this was for Richard Culver.
So you know it's not serious.
Me and Sandy decided, because we really enjoy Nicolas Cage movies, not because we're good, but because they're bad.
Oh yeah.
And we really decided that we were going to watch a series of bad Nicolas Cage movies before watching The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is one of my all-time favorite movies because he pokes so much fun at himself. It's just immaculate. Nicolas Cage is so self-aware that makes him really easy to love.
Right.
But I watched Con Air. was the first entry in the bad Nicolas Cage movies, and with it is 1997's How Do I Live by Leanne Rhymes.
You know what? I can get down with it. Why not?
Why not? This is also, I'll mark this too. This is my first and only country music entry.
I was going to say.
To the podcast. And it will probably be my last because fuck country music.
Right.
And I'm definitely doing it tongue in cheek, so still fuck country music. But How Do I Live by Leanne Rhymes is my first entry to PR songs this week.
This is not a PR song, but this is kind of like a side tangent. And I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast, but I want to say I still am musically a fan, but god damn, did we talk about what's his name from As I Lay Dying?
Tim Lambesis being an absolute shitbag.
God damn.
Somebody cannot handle their 19 Norse.
It's like, it really, really sucks because you saw, like, he came back. It seemed like he was doing really good. Like, he was always trying to be super grateful to the fans. He always put this really great front up on social media. Wrote a whole album about coming back from being in the worst place ever. And then just turns right back into the same shitbag that got him arrested in the first place. Like, dude, like, I really supported the comeback. And I was like, I'll like buy gear or something. I never did. But I was like, I'd buy some gear because the shirts were cool. Like, and he was making gym shirts too because he's a gym rat. And like, and then that video came out, and just seeing his reaction just made me think of someone else that we know that I saw a video of that we won't talk about, but you may know what I'm talking about. It reminded me so much of that I just kind of shut down completely, and I haven't listened to any As I Lay Dying, any Austrian Death Machine, even that Pyresis Pyrithian. That was his like side project they did a long time ago before he got arrested. I just have been skipping all those songs. Like, I haven't taken them off my playlist yet, but I keep skipping them every time they come on because I just see that video. I'm like, God.
There's a certain amount of shitbaggery that just you can't stand for. You know what I mean? There's a certain amount that's fun, but when you're talking about domestic violence,
it was just
and an egregious amount of domestic violence in his situation. That sucks. I'll tell you from an experience close to me, not involving me, but close to me, that unfortunately, first of all, the American penal system does a very, very poor job of actually reforming people and actually changing them.
It's a punishment and revenue
generator.
That's all it is.
Yeah, it is purely for punishment and revenue generation, and not for rehabilitation.
Yep.
So that's my first shot. And my second is when you have X amount of problems. Unfortunately, his are some that we can't tolerate. We're not talking about like a drug or alcohol problem. And not that you should tolerate those, but you could. There's an essence of victimhood and and drug addiction or alcoholism. There's not in domestic violence. Right. Not on the part of the
abuser.
Yeah. I mean, so there's only so much you can do, but I mean, our system just does a very, very poor job of actually rectifying the issue, unfortunately. And he may be victim of that, but that being said, at the end of the day, he's just a shitbag.
If he was starting to feel like that way again, he already knows the consequences. He should have gone to therapy or something. He should
broke the relationship off even.
Right.
Some manner of self-preservation / self-sacrifice.
Right.
To realize, this is a problem. This is
not the way to go.
My second entry to this is going to be Weird Punks by Cancer Bats. It's another band that I like a lot more than I listen to. I should listen to them more. But it's cool. Listen to it.
Tell you what, I don't know if I've ever put them on here, but To Serve is to Destroy by Demaritious is really cool. Demaritious. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's either that or Demaricus. Demiricous.
We don't know.
I don't know, man.
These metal band names get out of hand, dude.
They came out like in 2007 or something like that. And the only album I like by them is that first album. And it reminds me of like Slayer with death metal vocals, which is why I like it. It's super cool. Yeah. But that song specifically was very, very good. The first time I heard it was like, I think they were a Metal Blade out.
That makes sense.
Band. And they had like an EP or a promo song or whatever come out to download. And I remember downloading it as a kid and be like, oh, this kicks ass.
Well, it had this period probably between about 2006, 2007 to about 2015 or so where American thrash was
living in Metal Blade,
but also back on the rise. I think about like Toxic Holocaust that was it was on Relapse Records and bands like that. That was a newer band like that I happen to like a lot is goddamn, why they escape me?
Was Revocation a Metal Blade band?
Yeah, they were. Okay. Yeah. Revocation was a Metal Blade band. They were with them when I was with they were a Relapse band. They were with Relapse when I was with Relapse. They probably moved on to Metal Blade, I wouldn't doubt. But
I don't know.
Metal Blade also had like a good like 20-year stretch where they ruled shit in metal.
Yeah.
Like if they had the Metal Blade Records thing on the back of it, you could just about guarantee it fucking ripped. Like they had a pretty good run of really, really good shit. But yeah, I mean, American thrash, I think about Toxic Holocaust first. Yeah. Creeping Death maybe now. Which is a thrash band named after a song by the thrash band. Yeah. So
some people would argue.
Power Trip is another American thrash band I'm trying to think of. Power Trip's really, really cool. They're the only like brand, like kind of newish thrash band like that. Maybe Creeping Death a little bit, but good shit.
Yep. I haven't heard any recent thrash.
I really shouldn't say American thrash because thrash by its nature is American.
Right.
So, but listen to more fucking thrash.
Thrash metal. My dad had an old T-shirt that said, "We'll thrash for cash."
That might not have had the same meaning.
No, it was.
It was for him at least.
Well, no, it was because he bought it from like a metal site or something, and it was like he got another one that said, "We'll play guitar for cash" or something like that. Same brand, exact same T-shirt, but colored different. So
we'll thrash for cash.
We'll thrash for cash.
Man.
He thought it was hilarious, and my mom hated it.
America's just real fucking good at good music. Like, for real. Like, the things that we're responsible for, like, basically all of blues and jazz, for real.
Yeah.
And then, we can't say that we're exclusively responsible for rock and roll because a lot of good shit came from overseas. But, like, the metal scene in particular nowhere else in the world would be what they are today if it wasn't for American thrash.
I mean, that's true, because even like black metal, which is
you can talk about Black Sabbath being the first all you want to, and they might have been, but like in terms of metal, American thrash has done, if you're being honest, Black Sabbath has influenced a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of bands, a lot of stuff. But if you're talking about just overall influence of the metal genre, American thrash fucking did it.
Yeah. I mean,
to this day, and all the aggressive stuff that we listen to, I still go back to standard tuning fucking pre-Black Album Metallica and think about how egregiously aggressive, like hyper violent, some of that music is. With the exception of maybe half of And Justice for All.
Yeah.
But like, it's still a good record. But like, I'm talking about like, seriously, you would be hard pressed to find a band with even modern technologies, modern tunings, stuff like that is as aggressive as those first 4 albums are.
Yeah.
And the same thing would be said for Slayer and Megadeth.
Oh yeah.
Dave Mustaine's vocals, I know how you feel about him, and I'm even kind of meh on. But still,
he's not a vocalist; he's a guitar player. Like that's
probably
musically.
It's not as, to me, it's not as powerful and raw and as violent as Metallica's old stuff is. But still, just the level of musicianship is unlike anything we had seen outside of jazz and bebop.
Yeah,
like actual fucking musicians being good at what they do. Not you, Lars.
Yeah. Sorry, Lars. Not really sorry, because he's a shitbag. So like,
yeah, like most unlikable person in music is Bono from U2, and and I would put their shitbaggery between Lars and Bono against any like modern pop star rapper you can think of.
It's fair.
They're intolerable, like completely and totally.
Yeah. Other than like, I guess you get into
still two of the greatest bands of all time. Yeah, I mean that's probably untouchable at the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot. If
somebody
of shit like that,
I'll say this about Lars and Bono: if somebody told me that either one of those two guys were at those parties, I wouldn't be surprised.
That's fair.
Hetfield wouldn't be.
No, I don't think so.
God bless James Hetfield.
He seems like a really good dude.
James Hetfield and Snoop Dogg are America's grandpas, dude.
Snoop Dogg is legit America's
grandpa.
He's just going around doing everything.
We have the coolest grandpa in all the world and all of history.
He was at one of the WrestleManias, and so this is a really funny story. I think it was Shane McMahon was supposed to do a move on somebody, and he got hurt, like going into the ring, so he couldn't do it. So Snoop Dogg impromptu is like, I'll do it. He goes and does the slowest people's elbow ever. And it's so perfect. Because he's the guy, I don't even remember who it was. He was just laying there for like 30 seconds while Snoop Dogg did this little run. And he'd lean on the rope. And he'd do a little run. It was so funny. Everybody loved it. It was just like, God.
Talk about somebody that's reformed and like a decent human being now. That's it right there, man.
Love Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, he's America's grandpa.
He's great.
Can't name a better candidate for it, for real. I mean,
no.
Maybe Hetfield's more like America's drunk uncle that you love anyway. But supposedly he's sober now.
I was gonna say I thought he was sober, but
he is supposedly
recovering alcoholic. He's America's recovering alcoholic.
But yeah, I mean that's my defense of American thrash for a little while, and my love for Snoop Dogg all encapsulated into one conversation.
Let's see if I can pull up this email that we got so we can talk about it.
So while he's doing this, a little bit of preface. We have discovered new divisions in the PLU, as well as the entrance of team awards in the PLU, and that's what we're largely discussing today.
So the first thing is, this is kind of like the biggest one. Well, at least the most talked about currently is that they added in a gender neutral division. So we've had conversations about this in the past, at least 2 or 3. So PLU, trying to be more for the lifters, decided, hey, you know what? We feel like there's a need for this, so we're going to implement this. So here's the, it's 1.2.3 on the new I guess I don't know if it's called the rule book or whatever it's
handbook.
Called. Handbook. But it says it's open to athletes who opt to compete outside the men's and women's category. If the category is not listed on registration as an option, you can email the meet director and request it. So that would just be kind of like an oversight on who the director just forgot to add it. So sometimes
these forms just don't change. Don't read too much. Don't be offended over it. Likely the form just didn't change.
And it's not like they're going to say no. They're gonna put it up for you, or they're going to add you in.
If it's in the handbook, they're going to say yes.
Exactly. So that was point A. Point B, athletes who register and compete in the gender-neutral division must continue to compete in this category for a minimum of 4 years. This will be verified via data sources available, including Open Powerlifting. After 4 years, if the athlete wishes to compete in men's or women's, they must submit a written request to support at powerliftingunited.com for approval. If approved, the athlete will be ineligible to compete in the gender-neutral division in the future. So that's actually really interesting. I didn't ever see that last part, but I knew the 4-year rule. That sounds a lot very similar to the 4-year ban for doping. So I think that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times you are, like, in the instance of female to male transition, you would be using testosterone. So it does make sense to have that kind of 4-year rule. Don't know so much about the male to female transition. I guess they would be using estrogen, but I don't know. I guess just to make it like fair across the board and not have any discrepancies one way or the other is why there's a 4-year commitment to gender neutral as a division. But that's still pretty cool. And then the last one is kind of just whatever. Athletes registered in the gender neutral division may break state and national records for that division only. Procedures for breaking records are outlined in 1.7 across all divisions. So,
and something pointed out to me is they are not going to be allowed to compete across divisions. Now, the age divisions still stand for them. Yep. Weight classes still stand.
Yep.
They're not going to be able to register as a female and as gender neutral.
Yep. So you will pick male, female, or gender neutral. Obviously, male or female, you're just kind of in that.
It's normal powerlifting.
Yep. And then gender neutral, you will be in this division, not necessarily away from everybody else, but in the sense that you just won't be male or female. You will be competing against other people in the gender neutral division. So,
regardless of how they identify or anything like that.
Exactly.
Female to male, male to female, whatever it may be.
Everybody is going to be allowed to compete in that. That isn't to say that you as a male to female cannot compete as a male, because you still can. If you are female to male, you can compete as a female untested, I'd imagine, but not tested. So these are kind of like the guidelines. This is something that we've talked about a few times. I think this goes pretty much exactly how I explained my solution would be.
Yep.
And I don't know people's reactions to it yet. I've seen a few people excited about it, saying it's inclusive and good for the community. I don't know how the people affected feel about it yet. There hasn't been a whole lot of, I haven't seen it yet, because this just came out this week. So
my first opinion on how they feel about it is it doesn't matter how you feel about it. The fact of the matter is you experienced X amount of life as a man before you decided to transition. Right. And we know from science, you can look at Dr. Lane Norton's stuff about the introduction of testosterone and then the effects of testosterone long-term on the body. It improves bone density. Once you've taken it, it does improve your ability to put on muscle forever.
Right.
So the fact that you are identifying as a female is simply not enough in the context of sports. Even your blood work, even if it is in normal female range, is not enough to undo what life as a man has done for you.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, I mean, you can look at, me and Nathan both have blood work of our own we can present to you where we were well below that of a normal man. And still we're much bigger, much stronger at our worst than any female competitor. Save like the elite of the elite.
Right.
You know,
but
probably can name 10. You
right.
know what I mean? And that's probably a little bit generous. So like that can't be understated or undone. A little bit more unfair to people transitioning from female to male because they've lived their life as a female with less ability to gain muscle, less ability to gain bone density. But now they are able, I'm imagining, to use hormone therapy, which would effectively bring those numbers up, or at least even the playing field some.
Right.
I don't know that that's enough of a gap bridger. So initial reaction is it is 100% what is necessary for male to female athletes.
Right.
Don't know that it's super fair to female to male.
So here's my thing. For female to male athletes, you can just compete untested. You can compete as an untested female. So this really does give you more options as a transitioning person in general.
It does.
So
but they wouldn't get to compete as they identify, I guess is my...
Right.
And that's a big thing you hear about this movement is affirmation, gender affirming things. It gives them a place to go compete in powerlifting, but none of it is gender affirming, I suppose. I don't necessarily think it should be out of fairness.
I think when you look into competition, it just changes the rules.
It does.
Right.
I don't know that it's necessarily affirming for them, and maybe from a psychological standpoint, that's a little unfair. I think that's what's necessary for the sport being healthy. If I'm playing super left leaner, and I don't do this often, but I do think just ethically this is probably the way it should land. I do think there is probably, and we'll probably see it in the future, I'd imagine it's forthcoming, to be completely honest with you. There probably needs to be a division push to female to male is a different division than male to female.
And we might see that.
We might, but right now it's better than
nothing.
I do not support a male to female lifter competing as a female.
Right.
And there's no amount of blowhard fucking morality, ethical fucking social justice policing you can do to make that fair, because the science says it's not.
Right.
The actual fucking science. You can send me whatever fucking references about blood. Everything always comes down to blood work when you argue this. But the fact of the matter is, once you've been introduced to a higher level of testosterone, you are more predisposed to build muscle and bone density and stuff like that. That makes you competitively advantaged over a natural born female. Doesn't matter what your blood work is now.
Right.
Doesn't. So, kiss my ass.
Yeah.
That's the facts.
reality.
That's the reality of it. You don't believe me? Look at what happened in swimming. Look at what happened in the Canadian Powerlifting League with a male to female transitioner running absolute fucking shot over the female division until a man decided one day he was just going to compete in the female division and made her basically fucking destroyed everything she had.
Yep.
Not taking away that person's life experience, not taking away anything from what they want to be. The fact of the matter is, male to female is fucking unfair in the female division.
Yep.
If I'm being diplomatic and ethical, and I am, and I genuinely feel this way, female to male should not have to compete against a male to female either. So, out of fairness, I think that those two things should be split, and I think that's something we'll see eventually.
And I still fall back to just allowing them to compete untested female. Because genuinely, that is really where that athlete belongs, is untested female, because
everything they're using all the same drugs that our favorite female bodybuilders use, top level powerlifters use. They're using the same drugs.
Right.
With the exception of gender affirming surgeries, they are on the same hormones that women are. Yeah. Identifying women are anyway.
Right.
So
that just seems
I understand that. I really do. But I guess out of fairness for the person and out of some degree of political correctness, they should not have to compete. My biggest thing is they should not have to compete against male to female lifters.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that's why these options are here, because like if you want to and you want to go into the gender neutral, you have to be willing to accept the fact that going into this gender neutral division means that you might potentially face them, and the records you face might be potentially from
I've had male lifters that before they started TRT had a fucking testosterone level of fucking 50,
right,
and totaled 1,200 plus pounds. Like, it's not. Don't tell me it's fucking fair for a male to female to compete female, and don't tell me it's fair for a female to male to compete against a male to female. It's fucking not. Period.
I don't think it's about that. Like when I'm talking about it, I'm saying they have options.
But the problem, they do have options now. But if they choose to go into the gender neutral thing, they're going to be presented with the fact that they're going to have to deal with somebody that was born biologically male and is biologically science proven more predisposed to building muscle and bone density than they are. I guess that's the hazard of doing business. It is what it is.
I think at the end of the day, the gender neutral division is primarily going to be male to female athletes. I think that's just going to make up the majority of the competitors in that division.
That's also probably where the biggest demographic probably lies, is male to female.
Because again, I just go back to like if a female transitioning to a male is competing in powerlifting, they probably just want to compete. Well, I mean, other than just
I wouldn't speak for them.
That's fair. I think it makes the most sense for them to compete untested female from a competitive standpoint. Now, for sure. How they feel on the inside, they may say, I don't want to compete as a female. And if you feel so strongly that you don't want to compete there, that's where the gender neutral is, and you have to just be willing to take it on the chin if a male to female athlete is just better than you and beats you.
Yeah. Let me reiterate my opinion as a coach, because we haven't yet said it on this podcast.
This episode specifically.
This episode. We've said it on this podcast. I said it the first time it came up, we talked about with USAPL rulings on it. Is that probably what it was?
Potentially.
There's an older episode, probably a couple years old now, you can go back and listen to, where we get a little bit more in depth of this. My position as a coach is not eternally, for anybody that comes to me, is not to judge you who you are as a person. I can be friends and support and be a coach to, be a professional to, I can be your best fucking friend. I don't care. Like whatever you need from me as a coach, I can do and will do regardless of how you identify. That being, and part of that is everybody's money's green. If you're going to pay me as a professional, I'm going to be a professional. I realize that there's probably people that will take offense to it because it's a capitalistic mindset. Capitalism fucking rules. Eat my fucking ass. I don't fucking care.
Go talk to Dr. Mike about capitalism.
Yep. But everybody's money's green, and also I'm just being an incredibly fair person. I don't really care how you identify.
Right.
Doesn't make a difference to me. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. If that's something you really want to do, and I'm going to support you professionally, personally, the best way I can. That is my personal stance on it. I don't care if you think you were born the wrong gender. It's not going to affect my ability to be friends with you. It's not going to affect my ability to coach you. It's not going to affect my professionality. It's not. But my stance on it is this. I'm happy that there's somewhere for them to go. And if there wasn't, I would absolutely still take these clients on.
Right.
And it's something I iterated a little bit ago off air. If I have a male to female lifter, and there was no option for them, and they wanted to compete as female, I would do that. Still coach them, still support them through their journey as a power lifter, but I would not allow them to compete against female teammates.
Right.
I would not.
I think
and also they're going to have to deal with the fact that I'm going to have an opinion they won't like when I'm asked about it.
Right.
If somebody comes and asks me from another team, another coach from another team says, but they were born a male, I'm going to say, yeah, it's shitty and it's unfair, ain't it? Sorry.
Right.
Sorry about your luck. They paid me. I'm here doing my job. These are the rules. And as long as these rules apply, I'm operating within the rules. So I ain't gonna like it. You ain't gonna like it. This person paid me. They're under my care. I care for them professionally. If you're with somebody an extended amount of time, anybody will tell you, any coach with a heart, any coach worth their money is going to tell you you're going to become friends with people that you coach. From that perspective, if it's not in the rules and there's nothing you can do about it and there's nothing I can do about it, it doesn't matter if me and you like it or not. I'm supporting that person. purely ethical and moral standpoint and support of their teammates, I'm not going to allow them to compete against their teammates.
No.
But now that this gender neutral division is available, I would push for them to do that. Outside of that, my second choice would be to compete with their biological gender.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, there is no option in the PLU. You either compete as your biological gender or you compete in gender neutral. Can't help you compete as a female. I'm sorry.
Right.
Don't know what to tell you. Find a different fed.
Yep.
We can talk about it elsewhere. But I mean, that's my stance on it. I don't hate anybody for making this decision. But it is habitually unfair. And as long as rules exist that we can bend, I don't mind doing that. I ain't got to like it. You ain't got to like it. Other coaches are not going to like it. Other competitors are not going to like it. But that is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in that regard, it's not a whole lot different than we're talking about just being untested in general.
Right.
There are people in untested that do it, and there are people in untested that don't do it. I do think it's an advantage. I don't think it's a fair advantage. But that's what we've been given. So, I mean, I don't necessarily feel that about anabolics, but I do feel that about transitioning.
Right.
So, if you're in that situation, don't be discouraged. I think most of us, I'm not going to speak for coaches, but I think most people, discerning people, will do their best to put you in the right place so that you can feel supported and affirmed.
Right.
I don't really have a problem with what you're doing. But just know from an actual science-based and biological standpoint, it is unfair to somebody.
Right.
Until rules are put in place that says otherwise, we will take advantage of said rules. But as it stands in the PLU, you will compete gender neutral or you will compete your biological gender.
Mm-hmm.
Tough luck. Sorry.
I mean, hey,
that's my stance on it.
I would say that's better options than most federations will give you currently.
At
least here in America.
I think probably here in the South, this is more true than other places. That's better options than you're probably going to get from a lot of coaches.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be discerning and fair.
Right.
I want you to feel the way you have a right to feel.
Mm-hmm.
I also want my female clientele to feel the way they have a right to feel.
Right.
And it's not undermined by a man, biological man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be so disrespectful as to call you a man. I'm not going to do
right.
that. But I'm not going to be so disrespectful to the rest of my team to put a biological male that has transitioned against their teammates who were female.
Right.
I'm not going to fucking do it. So
I think that covers that pretty well. Honestly.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's a lot more to be said about it. I mean, let it be known. I'm not going to speak for Nathan because this is a slippery slope. If you really do feel that way, if you are in the middle of that, I support you. Do your thing. Everybody has a right to be their own person. When it comes to personal beliefs and professional beliefs, they're simply two different things and they should be.
Mm-hmm.
There's feelings and there's facts. And when it comes down to facts versus feelings, it's fuck your feelings.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
Moving on to better news about new divisions.
Well, I don't know if I want to say better.
I wouldn't say better, but less slippery.
I think it's more exciting to us because we have people close to us that are actually affected by this, which is really cool. PLU is now supporting Parasports divisions. So I'm going to go through this real quick. Parasports division is an extension of our current adaptive athlete program. Parasports division gives our adaptive athletes an opportunity to compete against other adaptive athletes in a dedicated division. They may choose to register for the Parasports division to compete with other athletes or compete in the applicable open divisions and categories. It is open to athletes 10 years of age and older that fit into one of the 4 broad categories: deaf-blind, athletes with a physical disability, and athletes with an intellectual disability. They'll follow the current process of contacting adaptive at powerliftingunited.com to obtain an adaptive athlete certificate. Registering for the Parasports must have a current adaptive athlete certificate outlining the disability and accommodations required to compete. They may be offered at local, state, regional, national, and pro level events. If an athlete is interested in competing in the Parasports division at a particular meet, but it is not offered, contact the meet director or support at powerlifting.com to see if it can be added for that particular meet. requests should be made as far in advance of the meet as possible. And then obviously they can break state and national records under that same category. Procedures are the same across the board. You may be registered for tested or untested. I didn't realize this was as intensive as it was. You do get a additional minute to begin the lift, so you get 2 minutes instead of 1 minute. And then upon completion of the lift, you get 1 additional minute to exit the platform, obviously, because if you have
adaptive equipment, stuff like that. Yep.
And then the disabilities may make it more difficult to get onto the bench or off of the bench or whatever platform in general, whatever you may be doing. A lot of this stuff is specifics that may not be necessary to go over because it's going to be about specific basically needs of the lifter. Sure. So it's like
that's going to vary greatly.
Yeah, so we won't go over all that. But I think it's just really cool that they're including that as like a bigger, like a broader spectrum, and
sure.
kind of like adding it in and trying to really push for it to be available.
This is, just to be clear, this is specifically for physical disabilities.
Physical, mental. So you have
it is for mental,
deaf, blind, physical disabilities. What was the fourth one? I said all four. Deaf, blind, physical, and intellectual.
Okay, so everything's covered.
Everything is covered. So each one of these will be, from what I understand, from what I just read, each one will be specifically different, a different category. So physical, if you have a physical disability, you would be competing against physical disabilities, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Blind, deaf.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. I think that's really exciting. I know there's probably not tons of, at least around here. I know we have two specifically that do have disabilities that lift, that were clients of yours. I don't know if they still are.
For sure. I've had two. A third with a physical disability.
Yeah, I remember.
And potentially a fourth with a physical disability. Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly, both of these policies are really good in terms of inclusion. I realize that the first one is a little bit more slippery than this one is. These things are absolutely 100% necessary. I mean, yes. Powerlifting really is for everybody and shouldn't leave anybody out.
Right.
Guess, you know what I mean? I really believe that because I really believe, me and you both know, because of our own mental health, it does have transformative abilities. The discipline alone has a lot of transformative abilities. So all these people should have access to this.
Yes.
Intellectual is interesting. I do think it's needed and necessary. Just coming from somebody that had somebody with an intellectual, two people with an intellectual disability, one of them in particular was actually, as a female, was actually pretty competitive. Could have been pretty competitive in open.
Yeah.
So it's really cool for her to have her own division and be able to go and win that. But that is somebody I would still probably encourage if she came back to me for powerlifting, and she's still a client now. She just doesn't do that. If she came back to me for powerlifting, I would encourage her to. Can she register both ways in this? Can she register open and intellectual?
That would be a question.
Obviously, it's not the same conversation as we did about trans athletes.
Right.
But I mean, that's somebody that legitimately, at a very, very light body weight, could be competitive in both, and would like for her to be.
Right.
And I think it's important, at least in terms of this particular rule, for them to be included in potentially both.
Right. I think that would make sense, because why would you want to not include them into open if they feel confident in it, as well as
the person I'm talking about is actually incredibly fit. Builds muscle well, like doesn't do it any differently than anybody else. Her intellectual disability actually allows her to things like food and stuff like that. It kind of allows her to be a little bit more mechanical about it in a way. And the fact that she has her mother as a caretaker, she don't often, if I ask her to do this, even if she wanted other food, she doesn't necessarily have the choice because she can't provide said food on her own. So she's actually pretty adapted to be able to compete, tested, and do pretty well.
Right.
Like even without this. And I think most of these people probably have, and probably have done respectively, probably have done decent. Mm-hmm. But I know, in her circumstance in particular, she could definitely compete both categories pretty easily.
I guess it's just a question of,
I know, there's a ESPN posts this kid all the time. There's a kid with Down syndrome somewhere, really like truly an elite bench presser at his age. He's like 17 or 18-year-old kid. A really good power lifter. He is somebody that absolutely physically, if he can cross register, should compete open. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I think, we're not talking with these folks. We're not talking about hormones. We're not talking about what they grew up as, what they didn't grow up as. I think those people should have the option available to compete open if they can.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there should be the option to do both, because if they feel confident or comfortable doing both, why wouldn't you want them to?
Yeah, absolutely.
You shouldn't pigeonhole them into saying, well, you can do one or the other. Yeah. I think this goes in the same category of open and submasters and stuff like that. You should be able to do that.
And I think, not a dangerous thing about having an intellectual division. I do think it's good, and I think it's necessary. But I think the dangerous thing about this, and a misconception with people that are intellectually challenged, is that they're stupid.
Right.
And they're not.
Yeah.
They just learn differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And there's some things, socially, and when it comes to social and emotional intelligence, they're never going to grasp.
Right.
But when it comes to cueing, when it comes to doing things right or wrong, stuff like that, sometimes they can be better in the sense that it's very just black and white for them. Right. I either did it right or I did it wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's actually, to some extent, kind of a fucking superpower.
Right.
The only other thing I would suggest is, does that include the full spectrum of autism or only extreme ends?
Right.
There are people that are very, very high functioning with that cognitive disability. So I'm just kind of curious as to what.
Well, I think it's a case by case basis, because you do have to submit a request to get a certificate to be considered an adaptive athlete. So there probably is they probably look at it as, is this something that impedes your ability to compete open?
Sure.
Like,
and a lot of times, not everybody on the autistic spectrum are going to be impeded by.
Exactly. So I think if you can go out and you can compete normally,
I jokingly made the reference, but it was a serious reference to a well-known powerlifting and strength coach that said, give me the right combination of autism and anabolics and I can make somebody a champion.
Right.
Like, so I mean, there's less gray area in this conversation than the conversation prior, but I do kind of want to know, like, I guess if you have to apply for the certificate, then maybe that makes more sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. For all of it. So I'm sure I didn't look at the form, because I won't personally be submitting one. At least I hope not. But, I imagine there are things that you have to describe your disability. What does it impede? How does it impede you? And then explain, like, how you have to overcome it, things like that. Yeah. This is probably all going in, someone is reviewing it and saying, okay, this person.
I'm sure one of those questions are, do you have a full-time caretaker?
Right. I'm sure, because that will tell you a great deal.
Yeah.
Off the cuff. Like, if they have to have a full-time caretaker, there's probably something serious enough to consider giving them that certificate.
Sure. Yep. And that's not to disparage anybody with any type of situation, but it's an honest, it's an honest question.
Yeah. And truthfully, like, there are some people who have disabilities that really don't want to be
identified that way.
Yeah, they want to be same as everybody. It gives them.
I mentioned having somebody that would have been an adaptive athlete had she chose to compete, and that she was an amputee. Mm-hmm. She had below the knee amputation on her left leg. Wore a prosthetic. That is somebody that very much was with me, training with me, getting ready to compete with me, because she wanted to be normal. She did not want to be identified as any type of handicap.
Right.
This is somebody that had 100% cognitive function, nothing wrong with her other than she was in a wreck, had an amputation, and just wanted to be looked at and considered normal.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, because they have to fill out this form, I can imagine that is their own according to their own fruition, whether or not they want to register this way or not. But I can't imagine that person having wanted to be part of that.
Right.
And it's not because she didn't want to be with other people like her or anything like that, but her whole fitness journey was centered around
being more normal.
Being normal.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was important for her to be able to identify, much like the conversation before, it was really important for her to be able to identify as a normal functioning human being. Mm. To have independence, to be able to do the same things we did. She was able to lunge and squat on a barbell under her own power in her time with me. Mm-hmm. The lunge actually probably more impressive than the squat, to be completely honest with you. But that's somebody that, worked really, really hard to achieve her goal of normal.
Right.
So I just kind of curious as to,
I think that what that does is it creates not necessarily separation, but it just creates options. Like this is all I believe that the intent,
both sets of rules.
Yeah, they're just trying to create options for people. So like if you say, hey, you know what, I'd really, really love to break a world record as a parasports athlete, you have that option.
Yeah.
Right. Because there are only going to be so many people doing
this. If I want
to
go compete with my friends and just be, 100 kilogram, just a power lifter,
go do it.
Yep.
I mean, you have that option. You can go and you can do things and be set to that standard.
Some of the thoughts of this probably in this adaptive people that are required to have adaptive upper body stuff probably shouldn't be. Adaptive things probably shouldn't be, regarded as an advantage.
Right.
But like straps on the deadlift.
Yeah.
You have somebody that's an amputee, left hand's going to be strapped because they have no hand there. Well, there's no hand there to grab. So you're going to eventually have you've seen the apparatus on that, it goes around your neck, whatever. Like at that point, that grip's not going to fail.
Right.
And I'm not taking any away from the person, but like, there's also a need inherently, and you could be extremely strong and have one arm.
Yeah.
You could be extremely strong and have one leg, no legs. There's a lot of ways to look at this, but like, to that point, is it considered performance enhancing for that person to compete open?
Right.
I guess it could be argued. I suppose it's not. I mean, I don't get to use straps.
Right.
It probably shouldn't be, but it could be argued that, that
I guess
person.
It's just
when you get into the physical disabilities, it starts to skew things because you're talking about adaptive equipment that normal athletes don't have access to. I suppose,
But also you're looking at the difference between, okay, but this guy, if you have one arm, you still have to grip it with the other arm.
You do.
That's a very strange sensation, I'm sure, as far as loading goes, to only have one arm loaded.
Incredibly, yeah.
So I think there's like,
well, so
it's really hard.
I'm curious as to what. I guess my whole point of this. I'm curious if does the deaf and blind's another good one.
Yeah,
those people are physically maybe better than all. Could be better than all of us for all we know. But like, do they want to compete as adaptive? And I guess like you said, because they have to apply for the certification, they probably, if they've applied for it, they've already made the decision that that's what they want to do. But I still think they should be deaf and blind. Intellectual people should have the option to compete open, or like I said, register in both, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think I would, if I had a deaf client, I would be grateful for the opportunity for them to compete adaptive. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if they're stronger than everybody else, buddy, we're competing open.
Right.
Like, let's fucking go get it. Like, let's go get, there's no, both records are real, but let's go kick somebody's ass in open.
Right.
Like, again, that person just wants to be normal too. Mm-hmm. So like, give them the option to compete as a normal person, I suppose. Yeah. And that really only applies to deaf, blind, and intellectual likely. But, they should be able to cross-register.
Yeah. And the last one that they added that I saw was pretty cool. It's just a new age division of 10 to 12. We touched on that briefly when we talked about the gender neutral, but because you can register as that from 10 to 12. But they called it youth instead of junior. So youth would be 10 to 12, and then I think you have 13 to 15 junior, and then so on. So it's pretty cool that they're adding even younger athletes if they want to compete. I think that opens up the door for like more families competing together,
sure.
Which is really, really cool. It can be a whole family day. You can take your kids out. I say regardless of age, but obviously, there is some amount of standard where, it not necessarily dangerous, but it'd just be really difficult, I guess, to get an 8-year-old to squat with a barbell on their back.
It's probably very individual, but like I understand. Yeah, I mean, I think we run into this problem in Coleman all the time is a lack of youth wanting to get into these type of sports. Yep. So. And most of the time, the kids of that age are involved in football, baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever, your major sports in a school system. Don't necessarily have a lot of time for this. They probably are starting to see at 10 to 12, they may start to see some type of strength and conditioning regimen. Although most of it, I'd imagine at 10 to 12 is probably pretty sport specific. They're probably not a lot of 10 to 12-year-olds, at least not in Coleman County, are in the weight room.
Right.
But they should have access to that too because they're growing up watching their mom and dads and brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts do it, and they might think it's cool and they should get to do it too. I mean, that's good for the future of powerlifting. The earlier the better. It's not dangerous. It's not any more dangerous than the sports they're already playing. So
I mean, Joe Sullivan posted the video about that recently about the quote unquote dangers of powerlifting and how quote unquote dangerous it is.
Dude, I can roll my ankle going to my fucking car when this podcast is over. And I'm somebody that has experienced about the worst. Without having to go get surgery, I've experienced about the worst injuries you can have in powerlifting. So, like, and I'm not saying I'm not intimidated about it. I'm very intimidated every time I get under a squat bar. But, like, it's no more dangerous than any other thing I could have done, to be honest with you. I mean, so... I'm happy. All three of these rules are about inclusion, and I think that's the most positive and necessary thing to the sport moving forward.
Yeah.
Everybody has a right to be there. Everybody has a right to do it, including trans athletes, although my opinion might be one that's condemned by some folks. But, I think as a coach, I have to think about, the well-being of all of my clients, and that includes all of my clients affected directly by these new rules, and all of my clients affected indirectly by these rules. Nothing's going to come from 10 to 12-year-olds being able to compete.
Right. That's just a new age division. That's all it is.
If Brittany goes and fills out this certificate for intellectual disability and decides to compete in powerlifting, I just think that she should be able to compete open as well.
Yeah.
And in terms of trans athletes, I'm happy that they can compete. They should get to compete. But I feel like there needs to be potentially a female to male division and a male to female. I think those two things need to be separated personally. But I do support the separation of those things from male and female.
Right.
Because I just don't think it's fair. And that's, as a coach, thinking about the indirect ramifications of what it has, the effects it has on those people's teammates, those people's competitors, other coaches, stuff like that. I had to think about the big picture and not necessarily about the individual.
Yeah.
The individual will always be protected with me to the best of my ability, within reason. So there's no doubt about that. But like all these things are about inclusion. I think it's all a net good, with the exception of the trans policies aren't divided enough, in my opinion. So.
Again, I mean, this option is better than none, and I think that if a request comes up for that split to happen at some point, I think from what I can see from PLU, they seem to be trying to do more and more things for athletes.
Yeah.
So maybe they will consider that in the next few years if they get enough interest in the gender-neutral division. They get requests to make a split between both of them. They may consider, especially if a lot of people push for it.
Yeah.
I think we're taking a step in a good direction, and we'll just see where it goes. From here.
If the direction is inclusion, all of these things are good policies, in my opinion. Because I do think everybody has a right to the sport.
Yeah,
for sure. If you're a believer in my rights end when yours begins, that's the hard part about the trans conversation.
Right.
I am a believer in that. So much so that, if anybody knows me personally, I do not subscribe to American two-party politics for that reason.
Right.
And that's largely, largely because of that. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to say in everybody else's life, and I just don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
But you also have to think about how you're affecting other people when you make decisions.
Yeah.
And then you also have to think about the immense amount of pressure you're putting your teammates and your coach under when you make those decisions too. It's not pressure I'm afraid of. But we are going to use our brains together and find the best solution for you, the lifter, and for your teammates. And if we can, your competitors and competitors' coaches.
Yeah.
Like, that's about as diplomatic as I can say it. Because I don't want to be offensive about it. Like, I don't really want to be a dick about it, but I also know the facts. Like, it's been proven in other sports and other federations and other countries. Like, we know what the ramifications of this actually are.
Yeah.
So we just have to keep those things in mind.
Yep. I think this is the best starting point that we could ask for, honestly. And then as the future of the sport progresses, really, I think what they will be looking at is the numbers of how many people actually enter as a gender neutral athlete, because that's really going to be the question. Like, we are going to support this, but how many people are going to use it?
I really think about, at most, we're talking about dozens of people.
You think across the United States, dozens of people?
Exactly. We're not talking about something that's going to affect hundreds or thousands of people. Now, whether you disagree with me about that or not, that's fine. But truly, in like true circumstances where people believe they should be opposite of what they're born or something different from what they're born at, I think we're talking about legitimate cases. We're talking about dozens in powerlifting and not.
Because powerlifting is a niche sport.
I honestly think that dozens is generous.
Yeah.
But, at most, we're talking about dozens of people and not hundreds of people. And I think that, there is some wisdom in taking care of the masses and the general population, and not necessarily that's democracy. That's how it works. You know what I mean? Like what the masses say about this and stuff like that. And I think by and large, because we had this conversation when the male broke all the women's, and he did it to prove a point,
right?
Because a trans person had all those records. But we had this conversation, and we heard from a lot of females about fairness of it, and regardless of what side of the political aisle they landed on, none of them felt good about a male to female transitioner taking female records. So, I mean, that's really something that's already been spoken on.
Right.
Like, women have said to us personally, they don't want that.
I think we have comments on Instagram.
We have comments and stuff to prove it.
I know there were a few messages.
Stuff like that to prove it.
DMs and stuff.
Regardless of how big of a social justice warrior you want to be, when push came to actually shove, the overwhelming majority said, we don't want this.
Yeah. Which
I think it's really novel and noble idea until it directly affects you. And then when these women on both sides of the political aisle were actually affected by it, they were like, nah, we're not for this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and then some of these people would have been people, I think, in regular conversation would have defended that person being able to set those records. But when it actually came to their sport, when push came to shove, they were like, I don't want this.
Right.
So a degree of honesty is necessary from supporters of it and from non-supporters of it. From somebody that is largely neutral on it, I'm happy that those people are included.
Yeah.
Truly. Like, actually genuine responses, I'm happy those people are included. Probably could do more in the way of including them better.
Right.
In terms of gender affirmation and stuff like that. Still not going to go as far to say in that direction that they deserve to be competing as a male or a female just because they transitioned today.
Right.
Not prepared to say that. And I can't think of any better of an example of why they shouldn't. We can talk about male to female competing as female as we want to, but just the extreme disadvantage a female to male transitioner would be under to go compete against men of that man's size.
Right.
Knowing that they, live their life as a female and then transition would be an epic, epically unequitable thing for that person.
Unless they sucked.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if they're female to male, the likelihood of them competing.
No, I mean the male to female guys, unless they just suck at
but the female to male, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about if the female to male is a great athlete and the male to female sucks.
You're talking about in that class. I'm talking about, I can't think of anything in the male division as it stands today. I can't think of anything more disadvantaged than being a female to male transitioner and going to compete against men of your equal size.
Right.
That person, like the actual argument of it could be solved with that. Like,
I see what you're saying.
You know how bad disadvantaged that person would be. Male to female transitioners are putting women, biologically born women, I should say, at the same disadvantage that a female to male transitioner would be if they competed as a man. And it's an egregious and large gap between those people. So, I mean, we're talking about the Canadian situation. That girl that had transitioned from male to female had like a 275-pound bench press it was not a great bench press for a man, I would say.
Was it that?
But it was like,
I thought it was over 300.
It was significantly larger than the next best born female athlete. I'm not talking about the man that chose to compete as a female. I'm talking about the person whose records he broke. There was a large gap between her and the natural born female runner-up, basically, in that record.
I'm trying to find what that record was because I am very curious.
I want to say that it was like 75 pounds or something. Like, it was in the Canadian Powerlifting League. I don't know the initials for it.
It was the CPU, but I don't.
But it was a very, very large gap. And if you do that, if we didn't have a neutral division, female to male, if we're protecting them the same way we are male to male would be in an extreme disadvantage competing as a male.
Yeah.
An extreme disadvantage. All the drugs in the world are not going to make up for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a lot of insight in terms of hormones and what they actually do for you could be provided by some of our female bodybuilders who obviously have not transitioned, but they use anabolics and stuff like that. I know several that have used plenty of anabolics are still not anywhere as strong as, they're stronger than their female counterparts, but they still aren't as strong as their male counterparts at the same weight.
Right.
Like, so, I mean, we have those examples, you know, if you want to get into that. And we talk about it all the time. Anabolics are not the end all be all to any of this.
Right.
Like, they're pretty far down the list of importance. So, like, to think that a female to male would have to go compete against men, extremely disadvantaged as a person.
That's why you never hear it.
That's why, and that's exactly
it never happens because they are just like, well, I would just lose, so I will compete.
There's a degree to me of this, honestly, that the male ego can be so obsessed with being better that the willingness to make that transition and go do something else probably tends to be a lot higher than female to male. I know statistically, without even looking it up, that the chances of somebody making the decision to transition from female to male is much, much less than male to female.
I'm going to make a slightly controversial statement here.
Go ahead.
I would much rather go lose at a powerlifting event than cut my dick off. I like my dick a lot more than powerlifting.
Well, I mean, you know, not everybody does gender affirming surgeries.
I know,
but like, you know, you would rather go get beat as a man than win as a female.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's another conversation for another day. I think, by and large, I truly do believe that these policies are necessary for inclusion. As a coach, I support all of these, with the exception of the trans could have done better to serve the trans community.
Yeah.
That's a take that you're not going to hear me say too often.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I guess we'll see. I think the real, like I said, the data is going to show, like, and then the feedback in the future is going to show where they need to go from here. So if people are upset about it and they want that separation, then it will happen because they're just going to be like, yeah, why not?
For people's mental health, there's going to be some uproar about them not being able to compete as the gender they identify.
Right.
That's the largest fight we hear socially, whether it's bathrooms or using correct pronouns. I don't really have a problem with the pronoun thing.
Right.
Like, if you want to be called a her, I'll call you whatever the fuck you want to be called. I don't know why that's such a problem for some people.
I'm probably just going to either call you by your name or hey you or dude. I call everybody dude. Yeah. So like I'm probably just going to use something neutral to talk to you anyway, whether you're a male, female, or transitioning.
Yeah.
So
I don't really have a problem with what you want to be called. I really think my only hang up with trans people in powerlifting at all is the male to female competing as female.
Yeah.
Like,
it's the only one
you have the same rights as everybody else, 100%. I will support you as your coach the best I can. But I really do have an ethical problem with somebody in that situation competing against natural born females.
Right. I think that pretty much wraps it up.
I mean, it kind of does. Yeah. I mean, that's I guess it's heavy-ish. I mean, a little bit more serious. I think
it's exciting.
I don't think either one of us took on this conversation with thoughts that we were going to offend anybody.
Mm-mm.
That was not our intentions.
If we did, we apologize to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent I do. But like I said, your rights.
It depends on what you're offended by.
Your rights end where somebody else's begins, and my stance as a coach isn't against you transitioning. It's against. It really comes to facts versus feelings. You know what I mean? Like, and then in that case, I got to go with facts, and I also have to think about the well-being of. And I have a great female client base. I have to think about their well-being, their competitors' well-being, and overall professionality for myself. So,
yep.
Like I said, not meant to offend, just
stating some facts.
Stating, how I feel and facts about it. Like, I think that even my stance to be open to coaching somebody like that will probably come as a surprise to some.
I don't think it surprised anybody that knows you.
No, I mean, I just don't. I literally don't care. I'm not gonna lose any. I care about you as a person, but I don't really care about the decisions you make, especially about ones that don't affect me directly. You know what I mean? So, I'm in support of anything that makes you feel better, but
including drugs. Testosterone, what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not talking about meth now.
No, we're not talking about that.
Steroids.
Anabolics. I mean,
my favorite.
Although I feel like we are both collectively less and less
hoorah about steroids. I mean, TRT is.
We've both dealt with the ramifications of
too much.
Yeah,
and we say too much. It's really funny.
Neither one of us have taken a gram in a week.
Yeah.
So
it's really funny when you think about that, because bodybuilders will take up to 2.
Yeah, it goes back into something we were talking about before. Body composition tends to be better.
Yep.
It's a generalization.
Right.
We talked about it. It kills them too. Body composition tends to be better. Heart's a little healthier. They spend a little bit more time on conditioning. Meh.
Yep. If they can handle it better and it works and it doesn't kill them immediately. You always, Dr. Mike has said it before, the amount you take does take years off your life.
100%.
So you have to go in with that understanding.
Now, to a point, I do think it can be additive, especially PRT and stuff like that. But
that's the difference is going from performance enhancing and normal, right? Yeah. So like when we typically, at least now, we take TRT to be normal, or at least on the upper echelon, right? Yeah. So when I say that, I mean like normal is 200 to
300 to 1,000.
300 to 1,000. So we're talking about between upper echelon. I'm talking about between 800 and 1,000. I'm not talking about being 12, 15.
Yeah.
Right. So upper echelon is still within the normal range, just better than the average normal.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. 100%.
So.
Well, that's the episode.
Dad jokes.
You
got any?
Have you been slacking? Man. I've been slacking on dad jokes bad. This is like my 3rd week running. You know what? I'll get on Dad Says Jokes and I'll find us some. Just to find us some.
I don't know if people get pissed off when I'm the only one doing it. Do you know what's made of leather and sounds like a sneeze?
What?
A shoe. You can hear my neighbor's truck that has a straight pipe.
Yeah, I think it's a 6-cylinder too, which is just an abomination to anybody that knows anything about performance vehicles.
It's old, and I think they just I think they just think it's fast. I don't know.
For sure can tell you it's not V8. And I can guarantee you, by the way it sounds, it's not fast.
It is not.
Car culture I'm pretty big into. To the person who stole my trainers and my high-vis jacket, you can run, but you can't hide.
That's pretty good.
You're not going to steal either one of those things from me because I'm not fucking running.
Trying to figure out how to word this one. Do you know what the hardest cult to join is?
What?
A difficult.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I misplaced Dwayne Johnson's cutting tool for the origami workshop. I can't believe I lost the rocks, paper, scissors.
What do you call an old snowman?
I don't know.
A glass of water.
Pretty good.
Oh, man.
A good wife will always be by your side during bad times, mostly to remind you that none of this would have happened if you'd have just listened to her.
That's pretty accurate, to be honest with you. Man. To whoever stole my antidepressants, I hope you're happy now.
At first, I didn't like having a beard, but then it grew on me.
Hell yeah. I think that goes back to early days of the podcast.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
I mean, I'm sure they repeat some too, right?
Oh, I'm sure. I called the tinnitus helpline last night. Nobody answered. It just kept ringing.
This one's so bad it hurts. I bought a vinyl record yesterday called Sounds Wasp Make. When I got home and played it, I said to myself, this doesn't sound anything like Wasp. And then I realized I was playing the B-side.
I love that. That's awesome. So I just saw a midget get pickpocketed.
Oh, no.
I can't imagine someone would stoop that low.
Boy, that was rough in a lot of ways.
Oh, man. Today on the street, a man asked me for $1, and I told him I only carry big bills. He said, well, give me one of those. So I gave him my electric bill.
I got a student loan payment I have to start paying back this weekend that anybody can have if they want it.
That's pretty rough. They told me I'd never be good at poetry because I'm dyslexic, but so far I've made 3 jugs in a vase and they're really lovely. You had to think about that.
Yeah, that one hit me and I'm like, fuck.
That one's a thinker. We don't normally get thinkers from Dad Set
We
jokes.
did that time, baby.
Oh, you got any more?
I don't have any more. I think I'm going to wrap it up.
Sounds good to me.
No, just to recap the episode a little bit, we don't have life experiences like any of these things, to be honest with you. Powerlifting is not something I even discovered until my 20s.
We do have experience as 10 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah, but not as 10 to 12-year-old powerlifters.
This is true.
That's what I was getting to. I was about to say that I didn't even know powerlifting was a sport when I was that old.
Yeah, I didn't.
Honest with you. Didn't know of its existence for a long time, quite frankly. For most of my life, didn't know that this was something people did for sport. You know what I mean? Definitely don't have any experience as a trans athlete. We are fortunate that we don't have any experience in adaptive. Yeah. Life has a weird way of changing things, and good Lord willing, we won't have to ever deal with that. But, these are things that directly and indirectly do affect me and Nathan. We don't mean to have offensive takes on any of this. But as two people that do coach others, this stuff is kind of near and dear to us. As fathers, this is near and dear to us. We want, our kids to be able to compete. We don't know what life holds for them, so we want as many options for them to compete and be a part of the sport as we can. I don't think nobody here wants people out of powerlifting, or wants to
exclude
anybody, regardless of how we feel politically or socially or anything like that. We think it belongs to everybody, and that's the way we want to keep it. We don't mean to be disrespectful in any kind of way. I don't think we were. We're willing to hear any of the opinions on this. We just ask that you, if you DM us specifically about that first topic, we ask that you respect us in the same way that we will respect you, because we really don't mind who you are or who you want to be. 100%, and we're not going to give you any grief for that whatsoever. These are things that are meant to be discussed. They're meant to be discussed intelligently. They're also meant to be discussed with some empathy and sympathy and, some emotional intelligence. And we're going to do that for you. We just ask that if you have to chime in, that you do the same thing for us. We don't have anybody near or dear to us that compete as trans athletes. It doesn't mean that we won't one day. We do have people near and dear to us that compete, that could be adaptive. And we do have children that could compete one day. So we're willing to listen to anybody's opinions and stuff like that. We just ask that if you do DM us about this in particular, that you be respectful. And if you don't like my take on trans athletes, if you're polar opposite and far right, and just hate the idea of these people being able to compete anyway, you also need to be respectful, because I will 100% absolutely fucking roast you at the first opportunity I get if you're disrespectful. So, so just be just be careful of our feelings about things. Careful about your own. Represent your people and your demographic well, because we want to be respectful and have good conversations about this stuff too. So. We don't really mean to offend, and that's not our goal. That's not what we want. So, all comments are welcome. We just ask that they're, above board for the most part. So
if somebody has a disagreeing opinion on you in the comments, if you're going to reply, don't be an asshole.
Yep.
That's all we ask.
If you are an asshole,
we can delete your comments,
and we can also be an asshole back. So just, remember that. So. But we don't want to be that way. So.
No. We'd rather everybody just have good conversation, regardless of what side you land
also,
on.
having conversations like this is important, because it could change me and Nathan's opinions about things like this to a degree. It might change yours to a degree. It's healthy to talk about things, and that's the only thing we ask, is that we get healthy adult conversation when it comes to feedback about sensitive topics like this. Yeah. That's the show, guys. Buy meat from the butcher in Vinemont.
Yep.
They were kind enough to sponsor us. They are same owners in Richard and Catherine Neese that we had in Scooters. They stay with us. Scooters drops by the wayside for now. But drink Scooters coffee anyway.
Scooters is still good.
Scooters is still good. Buy meat from the butcher, and listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Coleman_barbell, at Nathan Skedios, at Sip It and Rip It. I think that's pretty much it. Leave likes, comments, 5 stars. Don't sue me, Andy Frizella. Don't be a hoe. Share the show. And bye, y'all.